Time right now is 6:03. We are following breaking news out of the Middle East this morning. At least 40 people injured by an Iranian missile strike on an Israeli hospital. We're giving you new video coming within the last 3 hours. It shows blown out windows, heavy black smoke early this morning.
It came in response to Israel's strikes on an Iranian heavy water reactor overnight. It's the latest attack on Iran's nuclear program as the conflict enters its 7th day.
And tensions, they continue to rise in the Middle East. We're keeping a close eye on the White House, where President Donald Trump is weighing a high-stakes decision.
He's considering whether the U.S. should join Israel in strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, but says he has not yet made a decision.
I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, because things change. I mean, especially with war, things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other.
His comments come as CBS News learns the president approved plans for an attack in the event that he decides to follow through. He's reportedly waiting to see if Iran steps back from its nuclear program.
Second, CBS News confirms Iran has readied missiles for strikes on U.S. bases in the region as possible retaliation. And finally, the Pentagon is deploying an additional aircraft carrier to the region, making it the third to be positioned close to the conflict zone.
As President Trump weighs that big decision, anti-war protests are gaining momentum nationwide, including right here in D.C.
Jess Arnold is live outside of the White House this morning with new reaction from members of Congress and protesters who want the United States to steer clear of a potential war. Jess.
Hey, Allison. Yeah, we're hearing from 3 out of 4 of our DMV senators this morning who are saying that this discussion sounds eerily similar to one we know of a couple of decades ago and are hoping that the U.S. has learned from its time in the Middle East. Now, they are reminding everyone that Congress is the one who has power to declare war, not the president exclusively. So they are urging their colleagues to take a stand and uphold that law.
The United States should not rush into war. We shouldn't be dragged into a war with Iran, and certainly the president doesn't have the authority to simply wage war against Iran without congressional action.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen and his Virginia colleagues pushing the rest of Congress to have the guts to debate a potential war with Iran publicly.
That's what our troops deserve.
Virginia Senator Tim Kaine saying that the U.S. went to war with Iraq under false intelligence claims similar to the president's current ones. Senator Mark Warner saying Trump at least consulted congressional leadership on Iran during his last term.
Now we've got the president doing foreign policy by tweet, saying total surrender, ultimate surrender, whatever. Surrender to who? And the idea of what would happen, I can tell you, if I don't know, the American people don't know, and other members of Congress don't know.
I know what the Virginia public thinks about this. We are a pro-military state, second to none, but my Commonwealth thinks another war in the Middle East would be a disaster and would suggest we learn nothing from the last 20 years.
From Capitol Hill to the White House, protesters gathered Wednesday to call for the U.S. to stop aiding Israel.
Continued strikes on nuclear facilities poses a huge threat, obviously. And my concern is that nobody will stop Israel from continuing their war across the Middle East.
I do not want innocent civilians and people to be harmed anymore, especially using U.S. money and U.S. influence.
Now, the lawmakers you just heard from also point out that President Trump has said he wanted to end U.S. involvement in the Middle East, so they say that their Republican colleagues are even split on next steps. From the White House, Jess Arnold, WUSA 9.